just had a busload of pre-op clinic patients pull up like 3:30.
Literally?
Wow. And I sat around till 11 o'clock. I didn't see a patient till 11 o'clock this morning.
Recording. Just
3:30.
Mike.
Recording.
So welcome,
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to the APP Council meeting, the open meeting for the spring of 2019. We're excited you're here. We are recording this session so that anyone who is not able to attend can watch it later online, so just be aware of that. And I will turn it over to Megan and Paula to introduce our guest speaker.
Thanks everyone for coming. This is Dr. Robert Harrington, and he is our Chief Medical Officer affiliate. So he is our outward-facing CMO for all our new hospitals that have merged with our downtown campus. So he can talk a little bit more about himself, but he's here to really talk about the merge, what that looks like from a health system perspective, and how that is going to interface with the APPs in the outside area. So thank you so much for coming.
Happy to do it. Thank you very much for having me. All agenda stuff. So, again, Bob Harrington, I'm a hospitalist by training. I've been at MUSC now since October of last year. The reason that's significant is because when I took the job in October of last year as the Chief Medical Officer of the affiliate network, we actually had 4 hospitals that we partnered with. So those were Orangeburg Regional Medical Center, Beaufort, Tylen's Health, and the 2 RCCH hospitals, which are Carolina Pines and Kershaw Health. A month after I took the job, we made a big announcement that we were going to acquire 4 hospitals, and so my role drastically changed in October when we decided to go ahead and acquire these hospitals. So what I thought I'd do today is give you a little bit of a big picture view around our affiliations and acquisitions strategy in general, and then introduce you to the 4 new regional hospitals, just from a high-level perspective. So. Affiliations in general, we're all familiar with the MUSC Health mission, but you may not be familiar with the affiliation mission. And so our affiliations mission is really to extend the MUSC mission through establishment of meaningful relationships locally, regionally, and statewide. Okay? And that can be in various ways and forms, and we'll talk about that in a second. But as we put together the affiliations program, we thought it was very important that we come up with some guiding principles. So I won't talk about all of these, but it's important that you know there are some sort of core beliefs here and some core guiding principles. But the most important of which probably is that we believe healthcare is best provided locally when possible. So keeping patients and families in communities when it's possible is the best for the patient and the family. Now there are times where that's not possible and patients should come here for tertiary, quaternary care, those kind of things. But part of the reason we did the acquisition, and part of the reason we do some of these partnerships that we have, is to really try to keep people close to home. We commit to timely personal communication with referring physicians. That's important, right? Because if they send us patients and we don't send them information back, there's a gap there. We're not closing the loop. Probably the last time we're going to get a patient from them. So it is important to continue to build those relationships. We want to make sure we're aligned, so MUSC is aligned with our partners and aligned in the development of these service lines and other initiatives that we take part with. We believe that any commitments we make to some of these hospitals should endure any turnover that we have internally in our leadership, and so we're making strides to make sure that happens. The second most important one on this list, I don't know why it's in the middle of the pack, but we believe physician-to-physician relationships are essential and should be prioritized. So again, we get patients sent here because somebody in the community can pick up the cell phone or can pick up their phone and call Tom DeSalvo or Tom Keene or somebody on their cell phone and refer a patient here. Those relationships are super important to us. We do believe that the ICE chiefs in their role are responsible for coordinating and managing the delivery of the clinical services in those areas as we partner with hospitals. There should be some benefits and requirements associated with any affiliation agreement we do. And probably most importantly, and one of the things that I felt very strongly about when I first got here was that we can't be all things to everyone. It's equally as important to us to know when to say yes as it is when to say no. We've unfortunately gotten some egg on our face in the past around some affiliate relationships that were somewhat opportunistic, where we didn't deliver on the promises that were made, and partly because we weren't organized around that relationship. So we're trying to mitigate that. We sort of think of ourselves at MUSC as more of a benevolent partner compared to some of the other potential partners for hospitals out there. So if you think about it, there's a lot of consolidation going on in this space right now, and so Prisma, Atrium are all sort of coming together, and they're putting forth a partnership model that really is on the far right of this, which is they want to acquire assets, they want to acquire facilities. While we are in the business of acquiring facilities right now, we also have lots of relationships across this entire spectrum that I think make it easier for people to partner with us towards the left side of the spectrum and grow that relationship as we move more to the right. So if you look at this sort of spectrum here, you're talking about clinical affiliations on the left side, going through things like joint ventures and asset mergers and straight up to acquisitions. So we really believe that the relationships need to start on the left and move towards the right. They don't always need to begin on the right. And I think that's an important part of what we do, and it's an important differentiator for us in the marketplace right now, because the other potential partners are really looking just to acquire. Why do we do this? Well, this is our contribution margin. So the green area is the Tri-County area here surrounding Charleston, and obviously you know the rest of the state. So more than half of our contribution margin comes from outside the Tri-County area. So the contribution margin really is the money's left over after you have paid all your fixed costs. So it's what's left over to pay your variable costs. So our contribution margin, more than half of it comes from places where prior to the acquisition, we had no physical assets. By definition, that means that $155 million is at risk. We need to protect that, right? Because Prisma and Atrium and others are coming for it. And so it's important for us to now have assets out there through which we can provide some protection of that $155 million. We've been looking at this for a long time. I say we, the administration here, strategy, others. And we've been looking at it through the lens of marquee services. We define marquee services here as really three things. So there's a growth opportunity within that service line. Those services provide a high case mix index to us here at the mothership at MUSC. And there are growth opportunity, high case mix index, and a high contribution margin. And so when we look at those, the things that we look at here at MUSC are things like craniotomies and transplants and VADs and those kind of things, which we do and not many others in the state do, but they're very high case mix index procedures or types of patients, and they're a very high contribution margin. So when we look at that and we look at where those services are going to grow projected over the course of the next couple of years, you can see the darker green, the more growth. And so the areas that we are talking about in terms of both partnerships and acquisitions happen to fall in some of those areas. So if you know your geography in South Carolina, so Florence and Marion are two of the hospitals that we just recently acquired, and Lancaster and Chester are the other two, so up top here, central and north area. So important geographies for us related to where we think we're going to see marquee growth. There's a couple other things that I think you need to understand in terms of what's going on in the market right now. One is that our brand is probably our largest differentiator here. Our reputation is very good across the state. There are a lot of people here who are very loyal to MUSC. We train most of the doctors that end up practicing in the state. We train most of the advanced practice providers that end up practicing in the state. There's a trend towards national and state consolidation, and as I mentioned, we think we're a little bit more benevolent partner. And there frankly is a little bit of a reaction to some of the things that have been going on with Prisma and Atrium that are leading people our way. Not only that, there's other institutions that are in South Carolina that provide affiliations like Duke and others, but most people here in the state that we talk to really have an affinity for a solution that's based here in South Carolina, in part because our brand is probably a little stronger in South Carolina than some of those other institutions. So we in affiliations have developed some strategy, and it really goes local, regional, statewide, and national, and I'll walk you through just a couple of bullet points on each one of those things. But You're all aware of some of the pain points that we have right now on a local level, mainly bed space. And so how do we figure out ways that we can open up more beds here for tertiary quaternary care and potentially send other patients that don't need to be in a tertiary quaternary medical center to community hospitals where they can get the same level of service and get well, but don't take up beds in a tertiary quaternary center, right? So we need to make more bed space here for those patients that are coming to us. Part of the reason we did the acquisition. Part of the reason we're doing other things locally, like building a micro hospital up in Berkeley County, like partnering with Roper for some other local beds around here. So doing some things to try to develop that. We have a strategy around developing a convenient or urgent care platform. We have a strategy around going direct to employers in our business health line, and that rolls up to affiliations as well. And we're really looking to expand our primary care footprint, since that really drives referrals for tertiary quaternary care. On a regional basis, part of the reason I came on board was to help formalize the packaging of our affiliate offerings. So again, in the past, it was sort of opportunistic and a little bit haphazard, dare I say. It has now become a lot more formal. We started with neurosciences, oncology, heart and vascular, and we will do peds and women's health eventually, where we're developing a real menu of services that we can take to community hospitals and say, let us help you develop an oncology program. Do you need med-onc? Do you need rad-onc? Do you need both? We can provide that expertise to help you do that. Same with heart and vascular and some of the other things. We're looking to deepen relationships with current affiliates. So we're doing a deal down in Beaufort now to put a part-time vascular surgeon down there to supplement their vascular surgery program. We're doing some things in Tidelands around urology and some service line initiatives there. And we're always looking to add other regional players. We will be adding Hampton here in the next couple of weeks. We just got a very large grant from the state to help develop Hampton's IT capabilities and some of their other service lines like urology, cardiology, and we'll be putting together a telehospitalist program for Hampton to help save them some money over the long haul. You may or may not be familiar with the Williamsburg Lake City deal that's going on. So that's two hospitals that are up just kind of southeast of Florence. And one of them was badly flood damaged over the last couple of years and basically is on life support right now via FEMA money. And so MUSC has begun the process of assuming control through a management agreement of both of those hospitals, bringing them together and building a brand new hospital in between the two of them to service both counties. And so they'll be our probably next two additions to the MUSC hospital family. We're also doing, as I mentioned, a micro hospital in Berkeley County and a micro hospital as a joint venture with Beaufort down in Bluffton. So you can see there's a lot of continued growth. And I've got a graphical depiction of our growth here at the end for you to see. On a statewide basis, the former CHS hospitals that we acquired are part of that strategy, looking to also develop collaboratives based upon quality and other things that are important to these hospitals around certain service lines, around operational efficiencies, etc. And some of those are listed here. And then we're always looking to grow our telehealth program because I think that's one of the best ways and frankly the most cost-effective ways for us to get our expertise out into these communities. And then you've seen some of the recent news around Siemens, Medtronic, those kind of partnerships that we have on a national level. So what I call the New World Order, just to give you a little bit of a glimpse into the timeline here. So in July, the MUSC board was presented with the opportunity to acquire these hospitals. They did some due diligence over the course of the next couple of months, and on November 19th, which if you look at the calendar was the week before Thanksgiving, the board gave approval and a green light to go and do this deal. So the deal was approved and announced. On March 1st, the deal closed. So if you net out the holidays, that's less than 90 days to buy 4 hospitals. Who's bought a house here recently? 90 days is pretty fast to close on 4 hospitals. Right? So there's a lot of work by a lot of people that went into that 90-day period. May 20th, today, we're day number 81 post-merger, or post-acquisition, and we're well into our 100-day plan, and we will be well into our 180-day plans that we've asked each of the ICE chiefs and other functional areas to kind of bring back to the Integration Steering Committee. We think it's going to take a year or two to complete the integration completely. This is a long-term project. It's a big project, as you can imagine. In terms of the New World Order, there's some new terminology, and so you've probably heard some of this, but we are now the University Hospital Network here at Charleston, so UHN, and then we have the RHN, the Regional Hospital Network, and the new names of those hospitals are MUSC Health, followed by the City and Health or Medical Center. In addition to those 4 hospitals, we also bought 52 ambulatory practices, 2 skilled nursing facilities, 2 ambulatory surgery centers, and an IRF. And we've got about 125 employed providers as a result of this acquisition as well. So you can imagine it's not just 4 hospitals, it's a bigger integration project than just the 4 hospitals. From an advanced practice provider perspective, this is what it looks like there. So employed are those that are now working for MUSC or one of our entities. Contracted means those services that the hospitals had contracts with third-party vendors to provide, so emergency medicine, hospital medicine, anesthesia, radiology, those kind of things. So there's some contracted APPs up there as well. And then there are some that are part of private practices that are independent practices that have privileges at the hospitals for admitting, surgery, etc. So you can see kind of the breakdown there of the APP landscape associated with the 4 hospitals. So let's go through just quickly each one of the 4 hospitals just as an introduction so you can kind of figure out who they are and what they do there. So the one recurring theme that you'll see as I go through these slides is that these hospitals are staffed much lower than what they have licensed beds. And that's not because we don't have space, it's because we don't have nurses, frankly. So in a for-profit health system, which they were prior to coming to MUSC, they struggled a little bit to recruit nurses, and we've already put together a plan that is beginning to mitigate some of those nurse recruitment strategies that are there, and we hope to get the staffing back up very quickly. MUSC Florence is almost a 400-bed hospital staffed for about 250. Their average daily census over the last couple of weeks since the MUSC announcement has gone up to about 280, and that's as high as they've seen in a couple of years. So there is this MUSC effect that has happened where we flipped a switch one night, they became us, and patients started to perceive them differently and use their services more readily than they had in the past. That's a great thing for all of us. They have 37 ICU beds split between 3 different ICUs. They do have a CV surgery program, but it's small, and they do about 65 cases a year. For those of you who might be in CV surgery, you know that's not really tenable, unfortunately. You really need about 200 cases a year to have a quality CV surgery program. So we're sort of going through the gyrations of deciding whether we want to build that up or whether we want to figure out another way to deliver CV surgery up there. They do a vascular lab, they do labor and delivery, they've got both med-onc and rad-onc and an inpatient psych ward, and they have an attached ASC. What they don't do right now, and again we're looking at this as part of the overall CV surgery strategy, they don't do TAVRs. They currently don't have an EP doc, but I think we've got one that we're actively recruiting right now that's close to signing, and they don't do a lot of mitral valve surgery out there. And by the way, I don't know if you see the picture, but it's really a beautiful hospital. It's a fairly new facility. What's that?
Is that the old Bruce Hospital or is that Florence General Hospital?
So that's a good question. I don't know the answer to it. It's I think it was constructed within the last 10 to 12 years. I think Bruce is older than that. I think they combined Florence General and Bruce to build this, if I remember correctly. I think it was a merger that happened a number of years back that ended up forming this hospital. So this hospital was owned prior to CHS by another for-profit health system that bought it from the community when Bruce and Florence General came together, I think. Marion is the sister hospital, so we're running these 4 hospitals right now as 2 mini health systems. So Florence and Marion are the Florence regional hospitals, and Lancaster and Chester will be the Lancaster regional hospitals. Marion also a beautiful facility, fairly new. There are 124 beds, but as you can see, staffed woefully low there at 30. Again, their census has gone up since the announcement as well, struggling to recruit nurses. They've got a smaller ICU at 12 beds, and down the street in Mullins, they have a 92-bed SNF that's actually very nice. Lancaster, a little older than the other two facilities, just from a physical plant perspective. It's the second biggest of the 4 hospitals. So they've got about 225 beds, staffed for about half that. They've got a 20-bed ICU. They used to have our tele-ICU program, and they canceled that contract in October before we announced the merger. So we're back now setting up tele-ICU there again. They've got a 23-bed inpatient rehab facility there, a couple of TCU beds. They do labor and delivery as well. They've got a diagnostic cath lab, but we're about to start a PCI program. So we're filing a certificate of need for a second cath lab. We're going to bring a vascular surgeon up there, so we'll do endovascular and we'll do PCI there eventually. They've got most of the specialties that you need there. I think the major gaps for them is they don't have inpatient infectious disease, so we're working with them on tele-ID and tele-infection control and those kind of things. But most other specialties there. Rare for a community hospital, they actually have an inpatient neurologist. You don't see that too much in hospitals this size anymore. And then MUSC Chester, the smallest of all the hospitals, probably the oldest of all the hospitals as well. It's an 82-bed facility, staffed for 18. They run an average daily census of about 10 or 12. They have a very small ICU, which I probably wouldn't even call an ICU. For us, it's more of a step-down unit. We don't keep those kind of patients there that are on vents and pressers if they're going to be prolonged. They do have an attached 80-bed skilled nursing facility, which is predominantly full most of the time. And then just up the road, kind of in the panhandle of Lancaster County, there's it's an area, and I apologize, but this sounds politically incorrect, but they call it Indian Land. That's actually the name of the area up there. So in Indian Land, there's an Edgewater Ambulatory Surgery Center that we have a joint venture on and are part of that. So part of the reason that we did this is so that we could do a better job kind of redistributing patients from a referral perspective. And so there's already some established referral relationships between Marion and Florence and Chester and Lancaster, as you can imagine, right? So little hospital to big hospital, part of the same system. We also see the opportunity to be able to move patients throughout the 3 larger hospitals part of the system. And we're going to go live with a regional admit transfer center on September 1st when Epic goes live in all of these hospitals. We need the Epic capabilities to be able to see the bed boards and all of those kind of things. And they will really kind of be, ATC also stands for air traffic control, right? So they're more of the air traffic control of where these patients are coming and going. So for instance, if we got a call from a hospital in Chesterfield that wanted to send a patient here to Charleston, we may give them the opportunity to send that patient to Florence or Lancaster rather than coming here, right? If it's not something that the patient absolutely had to be here for. So really trying to look at the best, most efficient use of our beds here and really making them available for those patients that can't get services anywhere else but here. So the graphic of kind of who we are and where we're going. So I throw this up for you. So this is us on the peninsula right now. These are the 4 hospitals that we just acquired through the CHS acquisition. So Marion on the far right, Florence, Lancaster, and Chester. And by the way, you can see Lancaster and Chester are really almost in an expanding bedroom community to Charlotte. So they're really almost South Charlotte. Rock Hill is just a little north of there. We've got some future locations, as I mentioned, the micro hospitals in Bluffton and Berkeley, where we will be soon. These are our formal affiliates. So along the coast, the 2 Tidelands facilities, Orangeburg, they're south of Columbia, and the 2 RCCH facilities are the other 2 green crosses there. We have other formal affiliations, acquisitions in discussion that gives us a much more robust footprint, especially through the kind of PD and Midlands. And then we've got this state collaborative that we're working on developing around quality and operational efficiencies and those kind of things with some of these other hospitals. So very quickly, you can see we go from living on the peninsula just as recently as a year ago to having a significant statewide presence, right, through affiliations and acquisitions. And I'll just be the first to tell you, if you haven't already figured this out, those are not the last 4 hospitals we will buy. Right? There's going to be more coming. So that's all I had. I hope that gives you kind of a little overview, introduction to the regional hospitals and affiliations in general. Happy to take any questions that you might have at this point.
I have a mean, I know we're affiliate hospitals, but, and we have good branding, but how do you ensure the quality?
Yeah, so great question. So, so it's our largest worry. It's what keeps me up at night, right? And so I think that there's a couple of things that we can do. One is, I will tell you that CHS did a pretty good job around quality and data prior to us acquiring these hospitals. So we have a pretty good idea of their baseline metrics, KPIs, those kind of things. I do think that we probably have a little more of the secret sauce relative to quality than CHS ever did, because I think we're more focused on it than they were. You know, they're much more of a for-profit, bottom-line driven kind of place. I think, personally, I think it starts with people. I think we are very quickly figuring out what we bought and who we bought, basically. And so we're very quickly figuring out how to manage up or manage out some of those providers that are there that we need to really closely look at. The truth is, though, we don't have great insight into data until Epic is up and running in the hospitals. And so a large part of what we will do relative to quality will come after September 1st when Epic goes live in the 4 hospitals. Actually, I think it just got backed up to August 16th. So we forgot when we scheduled that Labor Day weekend was September 1st, and Epic also has their largest users conference that next week, and so they basically called us and said, we can provide no support for your go live September 1st. And we said, maybe we ought to change the date. So we moved it back 2 weeks. So I think, so part of it is figuring out who are the people that are there, getting our arms around the quality. I think there's also some utility in managing those services which have the largest impact on quality. So from a community hospital perspective, in my mind, those are emergency medicine, hospital medicine, anesthesia, and nursing. And so I think when we really get our arms around those 4 services, we'll have a much better insight into and control over quality in the community hospitals. Because in large part, the specialists are independent docs that we have much less leverage over, right? This is, as I mentioned, a new world for us where not 100% of the docs in these, or providers in these facilities, are employed by MUSC. And so it's a difficult conversation when you sit down with the urologist and say, we love the fact that you refer business to us. We appreciate all you do for the hospital, but your quality stinks, and we really need to talk about that. That's a tough conversation, right? Because that person is equally capable of going across town to McLeod if he's in Florence, or someplace else up to Rock Hill if he's in Lancaster. And so without alienating them, we need to manage them up and do the best we can. But again, a lot of that comes from just the data that we'll get from Epic when it comes around. But I share your concerns. The last thing we want to do is tarnish our brand. And our reputation is, as I mentioned earlier, our largest differentiator here. So we need to be very careful about that. But there are ways to do it that I think we will be successful at over the next couple of years. And part of what allows me to fall asleep at night is, I think, our quality department here, Danielle Scherer, is a rock star in my mind. Part of the reason I'm here, because I've known her for 15 years. She's already in touch with the chief quality officers at all 4 of these facilities and already begun the process of implementing policies and protocols and processes to do just those things. So I think we're pretty far down the path. Like I said, the big piece we're waiting for is Epic. Other questions?
What about rights for people who work at MUSC to practice at those places?
So rights, privileges, they're all right now considered their own entities. So if somebody wanted to go practice at those facilities, they would have to be credentialed for that facility. I would tell you that it's more difficult to get credentialed here than it is at those facilities. So the likelihood is, if you wanted to practice there, your credentials here would get you credentialed there. It's all going to be done through our centralized credentialing office here. So Nora Brani runs that for us here, and so we have the opportunity to do that. I think where we're starting to leverage that right now is mainly in the ambulatory world. So we're going to open a transplant clinic up in the hospital at Florence, and Dr. Dubé and team are going to start going up there. We're going to probably put a vascular surgeon in Lancaster at least part-time initially, so somebody from here will travel up there a couple of days a month to do cases and see patients up there. And so we'll start to leverage some of that where we have a little extra bandwidth here to be able to share with them. But for the most part, I'll just tell you that my experience, and it's been short so far, is there's not a lot of extra bandwidth amongst the provider base here to be able to extend themselves there. So we're really looking at hiring people for those particular areas. That and the geography, right? It's 2 hours to Florence, it's 3 hours to Chester, so everything else is somewhere in between. And so the geography makes it a little tough for people to see patients here in the morning and be up there in the afternoon, right? Okay. All right. Yeah, so contact information there, my cell phone, you can text me, you can call me, or my email address is there, so please let me know if there's anything else I can do for you. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys for staying. I'm Kelly Garber. I'm the APRN co-chair, and this is Michelle Neske, the PA co-chair. And we just want to give you some highlights of this year that we really enjoyed being the co-chairs this year. Sort of my big focus, if you will, has been to really want to do things that can empower our APRNs and PAs to really advance the view of APPs at MUSC and to enhance everyone's sense of value at MUSC. And so a couple of things we did this year just to highlight, there were a lot of activities around NP and PA week celebrations. For APRN week, and I'll let Michelle address PA week, but for APRN week, we held our first sort of ceremony to celebrate APRNs during Nurse Practitioner Week. And we were really excited that Dr. Moore spoke in favor and advocated for nurse practitioners, Debbie Bryant from the College of Nursing, Paula and myself, and we also achieved a governor's proclamation designating that week as Nurse Practitioner Week. So it was really exciting to see. It was a small gathering, but it was a start, and we were really excited to do that. We also have worked on, and Christy will tell you a little bit more about it shortly, but we worked on an APRN and a PA of the Year award, which this year we'll have our first designees for that, so we're really excited, and Christy will tell you all the details. And then as far as our goals, I will just share about my goal. My focus was on the listing of advanced practice providers on the MUSC Find a Provider website. And the goal was to achieve 80% or more of APPs being listed on the website. What was difficult about this is that there were some rules in place that limited who could be listed on that site. And it mattered whether you had ability for patients to schedule with you directly versus whether you were on an open template and a variety of things of that nature. But we made a lot of progress meeting with not only the administrators and marketing reps for the departments throughout MUSC. We got some rules changed, and so they were able to add APPs to that website. And Paula just sent out a survey last week, so I don't know exactly if we've reached the 80% goal, but I know we've at least advanced in all of the departments' access to being listed on the site. One of the challenges we found is that the APPs were so busy that even when invited to be on the website, they often didn't have time to go get the photo taken or complete the bio sketch. So we've at least achieved awareness and interest and a positive perspective on having all the APPs listed on the Find a Provider website. So more to come once we tally the latest survey results. And I'll turn over to Michelle.
Hey everyone. So so this year PA week was fun. We had the students out doing blood pressure screenings during the week. Had some fitness classes being done on the in the horseshoe. Really kind of spreading the word about PA week. It was fun. And as Kelly said, we're really happy about being able to provide an APRN and PA of the year as the other practitioners are recognized in the hospital, so it's nice to be recognized as well. the goal that I was working on was what we called a scripting goal, where we were trying to get a percentage of departments to use a type of wording that would allow them to offer patient appointments with a PA or an NP without making it sound like a lesser appointment or doctors full of this is your only option, that kind of thing. It wound up being more challenging than I originally anticipated, because we identified some departments that had access issues, and during our meeting, they actually lost a few APPs and a few faculty, and just really wasn't a good time to use them as a pilot. But we did meet with central scheduling, and Matt Long, so they're very aware. And I will say that, at least at a minimum, it appears as though some of the verbiage has improved over the past year, in terms that the patients aren't sort of saying, I don't want to see an NP or a PA, because they're doing it in a fashion in which they say, the physician is not available, but Michelle has an appointment in 3 days if you would like that appointment. So it's just wording, and I can just tell even in kind of at Hollings, like in the checkout, I can hear them, and it's a little bit more, I think people are just more comfortable and more aware with who we are, what we do, and it makes a bit of an impact. So even though we weren't able to really pilot this like we wanted to, I still think that there's been a positive effect over the last year. So we are proud to have served you over this last year, and we will be turning the reins over in July. To Julie and Catherine. So are they up next? Are you guys up next? So we'll let them kind of jump up here. Yeah. Oh, no. That was... oh, not yet. Sorry.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christy Smith. I'm the secretary this year of the APP Council, and I kind of helped Kelly with her baby, which was the APRN and PA of the Year award. She was very passionate about it and had a goal to herself already, so I said I didn't mind helping. And we've established some criteria, and didn't want to be too specific. We wanted it to be open to anyone that had 2 years of employment at MUSC. That way, no clinical practice requirements involved. Anyone that is here and that is an APRN or PA is allowed to be nominated. And we just want nominations based off of the standards of professional behavior. And those are the compassion, teamwork, diversity, accountability, and innovation. Soon there will be an email going out hospital-wide asking for nominations for both a PA and an APRN. You're welcome to nominate one of each, and anyone in the hospital is welcome to nominate as well. We are hoping to have all of these nominations compiled and blinded and then presented to our executive selection committee that we have compiled, and they will be the ones to ultimately select the APRN and PA of the year, and we will celebrate them during their profession's National Week of Recognition and during the holiday party in December. So hopefully, I think the first, I can't remember exactly who's first, but in October, I think, is the first week of recognition that we need to have a selection done by. And so those emails should be going out soon. It'll go hospital-wide. Everyone should see it. And then I'm sure Paula will be sending reminders as well. And Megan. And we're very excited. And it should be exciting to see who all gets nominated and how we can celebrate one another. Thanks. I don't have the list with me currently. There are 5 people. I can tell you that much. Yeah, it's not us, and all of the current executive council members are not allowed to be nominated. So that would be Megan and Paula, and the upcoming co-chairs Rochelle and Elizabeth. And oh wait, have we announced? Yeah, we have not announced this yet. Well, Rochelle. And Elizabeth. And the secretary, Amelia, and Catherine and Julie as well.
Sorry, I sort of stuck there.
No, no problem. Plenty of thunder we have.
So as we have two wonderful co-chairs, Kelly Garber and Michelle Neske, thank you so much for your hard work. This has been unbelievable. You've made unbelievable strides in putting together the scripting and the find a provider. There's a lot of work that goes into this, and beyond your normal, regular jobs, thank you so much on behalf of the APPs. We want to call you up to recognize you.
For your passion for APP work here at MUSC, and to be recognized here at MUSC, because that means a lot to all of us here.
And Christy Smith was our secretary this year, so if you three could come up. Christy keeps us organized, she's a taskmaster, and we couldn't be organized without her, so thank you, thank you.
And this is just in no order, just in order of the plaques that were given. So Michelle. Thank you. Kelly. And Christy, we need someone to take a picture.
Yeah, so you can push over. Get the lovely door back up. Near the exit sign, it's very apropos for you, right? All right, lovely. Thank you.
I just want to add something about Christy. I want to make sure she really gets the recognition because she did all the hard work and the legwork on the APP awards, as well as the minutes and agendas and keeping everybody organized. And it's it's a lot for the secretary. And I just want to give her a round of applause because she really
We also want to recognize and thank for all the council representatives because, again, we couldn't do this without you. The co-chairs couldn't do this without you. The organization couldn't do this without you. So here's a list of all the representatives. So thank you all very much.
All right, well.
And here are our new co-chairs.
Incoming in July. I'm Julie DeMartel. I'm a physician assistant. I work for neurology, and I graduated from PA school here in 2008, and I've been working in the epilepsy center here ever since.
My name is Catherine Chikaris. I am a nurse practitioner. I am faculty at the College of Nursing, but I also work in school-based telemedicine. So we'd like to introduce the upcoming co-chairs and secretary. I think one person's not going to be up here. Yes.
And is Rochelle, where I saw you right there? Is Elizabeth Poindexter?
Guys, come on up.
I was like, I was gonna do the next word. Seems good enough.
So just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, I'm Rochelle. I'm a nurse practitioner. I've been here for a little over 10 years. I currently work in heart and vascular, and I do adult congenital cardiology. I've been a member of this group since we sort of made it, and now working on, I guess, our third year starting, and I'm very excited. Thank you guys so much.
Wow. Well, we'll talk to our fearless secretary here.
I think I have really big shoes to fill.
Yeah, she did set the bar high.
Yeah, she did. I know, I was thinking, oh gosh, I don't know what to do. Amelia Rowland, I'm a nurse midwife. I've been here 14 years. Currently, I work mostly in the hospital, kind of run the postpartum floor. And I've been on this committee, I guess, since it started as well, so.
Thank you. Awesome. Well, thanks so much. Looking forward to working with everybody. On what, you ask? We did select a couple of new goals to work on for the upcoming year. You want to discuss those?
So for the First of the two is that by June of next year, we're going to have an advanced practice provider survival guide. So we're going to appreciate anybody's help with this as we develop a guide for a new APP that comes on that lets them know where to find things at MUSC and how to get things done. We recognize that that was a huge problem, as big as MUSC is, that a lot of people don't know where to go to get their questions answered. So hopefully we're going to have contributions from everybody to develop this survival guide. And then the second goal is to develop a job description for lead APP. What exactly does it mean to be a lead APP, and what requirements do you have to be a lead APP? So those are the two that we're going to work on. We're hoping to get help from the group with these things because it can't be just a solo practice. We need a lot of input from everybody.
One thing we heard a lot of when we were collecting ideas for what people wanted for the goals, people had some very strong feelings that we should be working on, like improving APP benefits and getting, reimbursement for CMEs. And of course, those are important things to be working towards, but at this point in time, beyond the purview of this council, if we start getting more buy-in, and that's why these goals are kind of focused on improving coordination or cohesiveness between the APPs, because if we can start to, bring the APP community together, then we move forward towards having clout to work on issues of that nature. So we're not belittling that or saying, oh, that's not important, or, no, it's much more important to have a survival guide than, paid vacation, but this is what we need to work on in order to move us towards that down the road. And we'll only do it if people are involved and getting into the process themselves.
So baby steps.
All right.
We promised to get you out on time. 8 minutes left.
So we just want to do a quick update of what we've been doing over the last year, in addition to the council. We, as all of you know, the APRN law passed last year and needed a little bit of cleanup. So today, I don't have all the results, but today the post bill as well as the cleanup bill went to conference, and hopefully they were passed, which will clarify the DNR as well as signing post bills. And it looked like it was going to pass this afternoon, so I will update everyone through emails or the newsletter.
So the new PA law passed, which is huge. It goes into effect August 11th, and I need to give kudos to Jennifer Marshall, who is our current SCAPA president, and Kevin Harmon, who's my legislative co-chair partner. It's been a long year, and it's been super rewarding. You'll see a press release hopefully come out this week through all of South Carolina, little papers, large papers. I'm going to read you the summary that I pulled together. The detailed summary of the law will be out over the next few weeks because we have our legal partners taking a look at all the nitty-gritty details and so forth. But it increases our prescriptive authority for Schedule II drugs. It allows us to have a supervising physician with 6 PAs up to 6 APPs. So the combination with APRN and PA would be 1 to 6. There's no mileage restriction other than if you are a new PA with less than 2 years of continuous practice or you're changing specialties. There's a 60-day on-site requirement that can be waived by the supervising physician even before hire. So we anticipate that we probably won't have any on-site training. I'm assuming a lot of PA, depending on the situation, probably wouldn't go through with a supervising physician depending on the situation. So we'll see how that works. But there's no board approval for that. It's immediate upon hire if that's what they choose. The chart co-signature requirements are determined at the practice level. PAs can start to practice 10 business days after their scope of practice guidelines are submitted to the BME. A PA may sign specific documents on behalf of their supervising physician. So this means any document that a physician would sign, we can sign so long as it's clinical. We have a whole end-of-life care end-of-life care privileges that we can do: pronounce death, certify the manner, cause of death, sign death certificates, issue an order for a patient to receive hospice, execute a DNR, and then authorization to work with CMAs. That really doesn't change our current working relationship, and Paula and I are actually clarifying that together for both professions over the next few weeks with the South Carolina Medical Association. Those relationships may change a little bit depending on what they say. And those are the highlights. So congratulations to PAs of South Carolina.
We also had the tax credit law passed, which is a combination for the PAs as well as the MPs. This was Bill 314, and it allows an income tax credit for each clinical rotation served by a physician, advanced practice nurse, or a physician assistant as a preceptor for a minimum of 2 clinical rotations within a calendar year. And this is huge. Which, there are guidelines that are strict guidelines, such as at least 50% of the APRNs or PAs practice in a combined total Medicaid insurance. 30% of the APRNs, PAs practice consists of a combined total Medicaid insured, Medicare insured, and self-pay patients. And it depends on how much money you would be able to take as a tax credit. So this is pretty exciting.
The biggest takeaway, though, for this is if you take a student now, this is on hold for MUSC because there's payment exchanges going on between the PA program, the College of Medicine. Some of you get paid for taking preceptors. We don't want this to be sort of like a dangling carrot as of yet. It will go into law. It's still in conference as of today. So we're waiting for the sort of the go live date, and the fact that we work at MUSC as far as policy and procedure, all outside students have a process in which they're equally approved by both the PA program and the College of Nursing so that we don't have crowded learning environments. And then if approved, then Paula and I get involved, but we are not on the approval source, nor should we be, because it is the respective programs' decision as to whether they take external students or not. MUSC folks, employees do get priority behind our 2 sister, brother programs, PA and NP, so that's a huge win. But how this affects MUSC is going to be determined at the provost level, so just FYI.
And I think it will be a little different because the PA does pay for students, whereas the MP does not, so there might be
differences, yeah.
We'll update you on that. The post-order bill, again, went today to conference. I testified at for the legislation, and it looks like it's going to pass. We wanted them, it's a physician order. We wanted them to change their names. They won't do that, but they will allow for signature, APRN signature, and PA signature. So that, cross our fingers, I believe it passed today, and I will again update you as soon as I know.
MUSC bylaws, Paula and I made about 65 changes to our MUSC bylaws this last year. We're going to be rolling those out really slowly. Everything that was historical was really in red after we got done with it. And we actually had great support from MEC, which is the Medical Executive Committee, which consists of some of our higher level physicians and legal, in changing that to really reflect and complement our APRN and PA law. So that was huge. But we have to have our laws enacted first before we can even sort of embrace our bylaws. So those changes will be coming slowly. For example, I know the Death Note thing for NPs, if you want to talk about that, was in our bylaws, but getting clarification, it has to be within the law in order to actually do it.
So for example, the DNR needed to clean up with our law, but now we have that changed in the bylaws. It says that APRNs and PAs can sign the DNR. So as soon as we have clarification of the state law, we're all set with the bylaws. Consultation service, we have pretty much completed all the adult APPs and now working with PEDS. This is our last group. From here on in, most likely, instead of circulating and redoing all the consults, anytime the strategic manpower is going to request APP hire, then we'll go back and do a consult.
We talked about NP and PA weeks, the scorecard. So most of you get what's called a financial dashboard. And last year we rolled this out through Tableau. It was a live view of what you're billing. It attributes your work, performing provider versus billing. It got out of the gate really well, and then we lost manpower on sort of some of the business solutions team here at MUSC in updating that regularly. So then it just fizzled away, to be honest with you, unfortunately. So we got our CFO, Lisa Goodlett, back on our side to rebuild this. And so what they're doing is taking the existing financial scorecard, and this is a totally separate team, and they are rebuilding that to look like what Paula and I created to really etch out the same metrics: performing, billing, performing with the attending versus billing with the attending. So
So someday these scorecards will reflect exactly what you're doing.
yeah, it's been as frustrating for us as it has been for you guys, but we do have a team on it at this point, overseen by our CMO. So we'll keep you updated on that.
The CMA, again, we're pretty much clarified, but we need the specifics before we roll out any information on clarifying the CMA role. But one thing we know for sure is that APPs cannot delegate medication administration. Point of cares we're working on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so things like strep, throat swabs, flu swabs, that kind of thing, we really want to see if we can order those as APPs for CMAs to do, and we're getting legal on that. Epic has removed the co-sign feature on controlled substances, so if you are still needing to sign or don't have an option to say no co-signature, let us know. That's a huge win. Thank you, Chris Kent, for helping us manage that whole Epic side. You're awesome, and we appreciate you.
As well as the APP participation button, that's been removed, which many of you probably didn't even know existed, but it's gone.
One less step that only took 6 months.
DHEC registration, just be aware, I know the April 1st date has passed, but if you've not renewed, they do not send out reminders, and if you've not renewed by April 1st, you do not have a DHEC number. Monthly APP dinners, still continue to have these. So I've been sending out reminders in the newsletter and emails, so try to come. Even if the subject is not your number one priority, it's a good time to get together and talk with other APPs and see what's going on.
Again, student rotations, if you have a friend that wants to rotate externally, again, there is a policy now that's put in place by the provost and College of Medicine. So again, that needs approval. Physicians, PAs, APRNs that need an outside student, that needs approval first. And again, this is really because College of Medicine has crowded learning environments. And if we are, as an NP program and a PA program, to go into a space and we have external students already in that space, it's a really big issue for our external programs. The Board of Trustees is asking that we, quote unquote, increase our class sizes respectively, which puts a lot of pressure on our respective programs here. So we have to open up those spaces for our homegrown students.
However,
if you want to have, like if a student wants to come, how does that process start? Does their program contact them? Or?
So we have a policy that we can send out to you guys. Just contact us and we'll send you the policy. We have a beautiful flow chart of who to contact. Yeah.
And we are trying to, and it's my pet peeve, is that if it's a nurse at MUSC who's been working here for years, they should be able to come even though they're in another program outside of MUSC. And the reasons for being in other programs is that we don't offer many, like the neonatal nurse practitioner program here or acute care program here. So we do give priority to nurses who've worked here or not nurses for PA school if, whether they're working in dietary or somebody who's been dedicated to MUSC deserves the right to come and practice here. So we are giving priority to them.
HR salary review. So Paula and I have revisited this. The pay scale is by years of experience. We've handed that over to now HR, who regionally has said that we're competitive. We're not nationally competitive, but we're regionally competitive. So at this point, our pay scale is set as it is. The good news, though, is that HR will be reviewing our pay scale every year instead of every 5 years, because you look at percentages around the country and our salaries, APRN, PA, we're in the same boat, are increasing 6.5% per year in salary every year. So we can't look at this every 5 years. We'll lose our folks. Now, benefits here and that are very competitive, our 401k. So when you look at the retirement packages, those really are beefed up compared to private practice or other hospital systems. So HR, again, looks at the whole package, not just the starting salary, which a lot of younger new grads may just focus on that starting salary. So we have presented though multiple times, and that is the answer we've received.
When they say they're comparing us to regional,
Who? So the regional states, North Carolina, Florida, it's the regional state, the Southeast.
The South.
Southeast region.
and are those HR reviews to MUSCP or MUHA APP
All.
as well?
All.
Okay.
Yeah. Good question.
Why is it so hard to get a copy of, the salary structure?
So if we were to give that out, it's, is it Stark Law where Roper, it's basically secret sauce in the fact that one can't share another person's salary based on competitive market. Because if we say starting salary here was $2, then Roper could do $2.10. So it's for those reasons that it's under sort of wraps. And that's throughout the country. Yeah. So, any questions, concerns, please email Paula and I. Again, we work with the council. We have other projects that come up, but these are our main projects right now. If there's anything that you want to see done or improved, please do email us up. So you guys are our eyes and ears, and we thank you for coming today. Thanks again to our two chairs and Christy Smith, our secretary, and to our awesome co-chairs coming in, and to our newly elected officers, Rochelle and Amelia, and Elizabeth, who's at the AAPA conference in Denver. Thanks, guys. Please take some food on your way out.